All right, joining us now, Miranda Devine, Ace New York Post columnist and a Fox News contributor who was there, and Rich Lowry, National Review editor-in-chief, my very dear friend. We have a country to save. I think that, in some sense, that may be the heart of this whole. We have many avenues to save it, but we have a country to save, Miranda.
Yes, and that was beautifully said, Larry. It was such an enormous and beautiful occasion yesterday. It's really still taking time to process it. And I think because the impact on the whole country, possibly the world, opening hearts everywhere, changing people's entire paradigm of belief. And I was speaking to Andrew Colvert yesterday, who was Charlie's right-hand man, who will be instrumental in making the Turning Point expansion happen. And he said, Charlie believed this is a moral and religious country. And for too long, the people in the majority, the moral and religious people, were silenced. And Turning Point was about giving them a voice. Yesterday was about really allowing them to see that they are not in the minority. They are on the side of good and right. And that the people that you mentioned, those lefty Democrats who had been denigrating Charlie Kirk in death, they're not nothing. They're nobody. They're completely irrelevant to the future of this country. And that's such an optimistic thing to feel. And it's what Donald Trump himself articulated. And, you know, there's been criticism of Donald Trump talking about, well, I'm sorry, I can't forgive my enemies. I hate my enemies. And people drawing a contrast to Erika Kirk's unbelievably gracious and just Christian forgiveness there, which was so hard for her to get out. She knew she had to. And I don't really see it as a jarring contrast, because Donald Trump is the leader of a great nation that is beset by enemies. And in the heat of battle, mercy is a weakness. We know this through philosophy, even in the Bible. And so while mercy and forgiveness, of course, is core to the Christian faith, Donald Trump doesn't have that luxury. And I think it was very courageous of him to stand up and not just join hands in a fake, as J.D. Vance called it, kumbaya moment, but to just state his thought and then say, but maybe Erika will change my mind. That will be after the battle is won.
But, you know, I think the key point, and to my way of thinking, to my world of optimism and whatnot, you know, Charlie Kirk grows larger and larger. After yesterday was an extraordinary event. It was an we won't see, I don't think we're going to see anything like that in our lifetime, for a long, long time, other people's lifetime. Okay, he grows bigger. As that event went on, Charlie Kirk grew bigger, and these other naysayers grew smaller and smaller. That's kind of the way I thought about this
Stephen
whole
Miller
thing.
had a great line about this, right?
Yes,
They thought they're going to kill him. They made him immortal. And I would just say the Christian dynamic, and Erika captured it so beautifully and even bravely, is this assassination was a hideous act of hate, and what did it create? A wave of love, right? And Charlie Kirk was a culture warrior, and we tend sometimes to think about that, oh, it's a fight over what bathrooms, bathroom policy will be, or transgender sports, whatever. But ultimately, it's about God. And that's what he was about at the end of the day. Undergirding all of this is faith and Christian faith. And she, again, made that case very powerfully about there are these lost young men. I think she called them the lost boys of the West that he wanted to reach. People like Tyler Robinson that have been distorted and gone down to this despairing sink of nihilism. He wanted to reach those sort of young men and show them there's something better and there's a life of purpose and meaning.
One reason why this line of reasoning, one reason why Charlie Kirk goes larger and the naysayers grow smaller, is the forgiveness of Erika Kirk. Let's just take a listen to this.
That young man, I forgive him. I forgive him because it was what Christ did and is what Charlie would do. The answer to hate is not hate. The answer we know from the gospel is love, and always love.
Yes, I forgive them, for they know what they forgive them, God. They know what they do, for they know not what they do. I mean, I think that's pretty extraordinary. I mean, I don't know how many people saw that My guess is a lot of people saw that. My guess is it does the whole country a lot of good to see that, after all, the tragedy and the loss of her husband. I mean, it's really quite remarkable. I come back to this again, Miranda. I'm an old guy, all right? I served a couple of presidents down through the years. The country needs to see this. This is a healing. This is, yes, it's a revival, but it's also a healing. It's like yesterday, with God's grace, we drew a red line.
Yes.
We drew a red line yesterday of all the people that saw that. You can't forget that. Okay, now you looked at public officials, you can dismiss that. Politicians, you can dismiss that. This was the wife of the slain martyr who said that, forgiveness. That is extraordinary. That is absolutely extraordinary. I'm sorry to dwell on that. I'm sorry to be emotional about that.
Oh, not. I mean, it's spine-tingling. It really is something transcendent, what she did. And the emotion, the struggle it took to subdue anger, which she must feel, and to go to that Christian forgiveness, which is, Christianity is countercultural and it's difficult. And there will be enemies that beset Christians, and she knows that. And she was like a warrior princess there. And, you know, the entire stadium, 90,000 some odd people, they stood as a crowd to applaud her at the minute she said, "I forgive him," and applauded. There was a roar that you could hear in the stadium. It's the forgiveness for somebody is actually so strong, it erases the evil and the negativity. The goodness is much stronger and more powerful. And the rest of the naysayers and the killer himself, they all just diminish. They become so unimportant in the grand scheme of things.
There were no riots yesterday. There were no calls for violence yesterday. Not a one that I'm aware of. No riots, nothing like we had a few years ago. Sorry to raise that, but that's the reality. That's the difference between faith and, I'll say, non-faith, all right? Nihilism, that's fair enough. Rich, this is a cultural moment. This is a cultural moment. It's a religious moment. And let's not forget, he believed in free speech. Your point, he and Van Jones were going at it. I don't know this guy, Van Jones, but I guess he's a big left-wing guy. He was going at it, and one of the last things that happened was in Charlie's life that he said, please, let's have a good conversation about this. Free speech is a very important part of this. Not that many people mention free speech, but free speech was a free, respectable, civil speech, Rich. I mean, that is a big part of this story as well.
Huge. I just to come back to Erika for just a moment. There's no way you can stand there, say that, feel that without the grace of God, right? There's no way without the grace of God. And the people in that arena are often stereotyped and smeared as haters and exclusionary.
Right.
They're standing and giving a standing ovation and weeping at a widow forgiving the murderer of her husband, right? What else do you need to know?
It's the red line. It's a very bright red line.
And she prayed before she went out there. It was such a courageous thing to do. You saw her praying, and then you saw her get the strength.
And I think it's very important. I don't want to dwell on the political aspect, but I just think for one person, the President of the United States, it's very important that he lend his voice and his support to this crusade. It's very important. Not all presidents do. They lack the courage to do it. So it's part of the red line here. I mean, I don't know where this is going to lead. I know there's some controversy about going after some of his enemies. I don't want to get into that now. We'll see what happens there. Yeah. But I think the quotes that he gave yesterday, which goes back to this Bible Museum speech he gave.
That's a great connection you made.
I mean, all of it. How's this happening? Well, the answer is it happened. Listen, you and I know, William F. Buckley Jr. wrote this. How many? 1951, God and Man at Yale. Every single time he wrote books about this. We cannot have a great country, a great society, and great families without religion, without God of some kind.
The founders
How is that possible? The founders, right? Endowed by our Creator.
Yes.
It's as American as apple pie, for
Yes.
heaven's sakes. We can't forget that.
Absolutely.
We must not forget that. By the way, lest I forget one other small detail, there was another miracle here wrought by Charlie Kirk, and that is Elon Musk got together again with President Trump, Miranda, as you remind us. We all saw the little pictures of it in the celebration.
It was just wonderful, and it was.
I knew he would.
The
I knew he
first
would.
miracle of. You said he would.
Yes.
The first miracle of Charlie Kirk. Charlie wanted more than anything for those two to get back together again. You were confident it would happen, and there it was, the perfect moment. And how gracious of the president after Elon really said some pretty awful things about him.
You think?
But how gracious to sit there and they both. This is what happened yesterday. People's hearts everywhere were just softened, and
Yes.
they forgot the old grudges. They meant nothing.
That's such an important point.
Yeah.
That to some extent is what I mean by this red line, that we just drew a red line. I'll call it hate and forgiveness, evil and good. I don't know. I haven't processed this whole thing myself. It's so unbelievable. To me, as somebody who came to faith some 30-odd years ago, you were there, if I'm not mistaken. You were. God bless you.
Wow.
Bill Buckley was one of the sponsors of that wonderful event. I just love it. You know, I didn't expect to watch the TV through the entire thing. I sat there and watched the TV through the entire thing, and boy, we got a nice dose of the gospel, huh?
Absolutely. It's one of the most compelling public displays of Christianity we've seen in decades.
Yeah.
I can't think of anything that's comparable.
If you missed Sunday school, you could have picked it up yesterday.
Absolutely.
So that's always a good thing,
Yeah.
too. Anyway, thank you ever so much. Miranda Devine, Rich Lowry, apologize for the sentiment.